You may be seated. So for those of you that are members of our congregation, you know that our Am Yisrael B'nai Mitzvah students have to do 3 mitzvah projects as part of their preparation for their big day. And one of my favorite named projects is what Mr. Sherman, our school director, called their passion project. So every student has to have a passion project. So I want you to know, for most of my career, my passion project has been all of you. But I had an unbelievable opportunity that occurred not long ago to actually have a true passion project, and that was when I was invited to participate in the conversion process through the Karen David Consulting Group, to participate in the process of helping young Israelis, LGBTQ Israelis, who were on the surrogacy journey here with the help of the consulting group, and the final step, to be able to send these young couples, so far all dads, back to Israel with this baby that had been properly converted to Judaism. And it actually pushed so many buttons that are near and dear to me. First of all, just the button of LGBTQ inclusion, the idea which is throughout our tradition of the longing of the founding families of our tradition, the longing to have a child and to watch this couple that maybe wondered at a certain point in their life, will this ever be something that's even possible for us, to see them walk into the mikvah holding this infant, because the babies are all infants, getting ready as their final step to go to Israel. Yes, sticking it in the eye of the chief rabbinate that would not recognize me as a rabbi, let alone recognize my conversion if it was done within Israel. Crazy, but that's the way it works. To help create a Jewish person. And frankly, in this last year and a half, what it means to actually do something for Israel and for Zionism. To not only to create a young Jewish baby for this family on their personal journey, but in this dark days of this last year and a half, to help create an Israeli citizen. So it was like all passion projects, you get more than you give. And each one, I've only been at 2. And yes, Allison, I promise, number 3 is coming up. I'm going to have everything right this time. Thank you for giving me a third shot at this. Everything will go smoothly this time. That's the plan. I had to figure out the whole paperwork stuff, but I got it now. But it was a gift that I feel that when you called me, Allison, and first I think you emailed me and we spoke, and my congregation knows this because I've said this over and over, the day that you first reached out to me just happened to be such a dark day in Jewish history. It was the day that the bodies of the Bibas children were brought back to Israel. I'm sure like many of you had spent the whole morning crying, and then I spoke to you and said, would you want to help with this? So really, it's a gift to be able to do this. And so I have a lot of questions, because I haven't met Michal before today, and a lot of questions about, how did this actually all work? How was it founded? What is the process? And I figured a lot of you would have questions as well. And so I was just so grateful. I thought, what could be a better program during Pride Month than to talk about this amazing, amazing group. So it's been founded by Michal Karen David. She's a former Israeli diplomat for 16 years, raised, of course, in Israel, got to come to the States for the first time in 2014 and learn about American Jewry, which, as much as Israel, we're all brothers and sisters, but culturally we are, we have different experiences that make us quite different. And while she served, she realized there were gaps in services provided to internationals in the U.S. and made it her mission to bridge those gaps. And from that, this consulting agency was formed. We also want to welcome Allison Turkle-Rubin. She completed her undergraduate studies at the University of Kansas, majoring in political science with a concentration in international affairs. Earned her master's degree in Jewish professional studies with a concentration in experiential education from Spertus. She has a whole host of professional experience that finally brought her to the consulting agency as a client coordinator in the summer of 2023 and became a surrogacy consultant in the fall of 2024. So I'm so thrilled to invite you up to the Bima, tell us a little bit about your story and the journey, and then I'm sure that our congregants will have questions. When we do questions and answers, we pass around a microphone because we have people watching by live stream and they won't be able to hear the questions. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Michal Karen David, and I'm originally Israeli. So I was brought up in Israel with a British mom and a Romanian dad. And I started working at the Israeli Foreign Ministry right out of the army. And while I was starting my BA in the Hebrew University, and really all my life fell in love with public service and, giving back to the state of Israel. And I was working in headquarters in Israel for 9 years. And in 2024, got the opportunity to be nominated an Israeli consul in New York, and spent 4 years as a diplomat in New York, where it was the first time to be in a relocation in America. Yes, of course, sure. So in New York was first time I was a foreign diplomat and was stationed abroad, and actually thought that everybody is like the people in Manhattan, but only when I got my second station in Chicago, I was like, oh, people are really nice. And you can be a diplomat up to 5 years, and then you have to go back to headquarters to chill, and then you can, go again. And after 1 year, I was asked to become the Israeli consul in Chicago. And I was the Israeli consul in Chicago from 2019 to 2022. I was heading all the consular section. I was heading, the employees at the consulate. And I was in the midst of COVID. So that was an experience. But I think what happened then that brought this company up was that because of COVID, all governments basically shut down, all government offices, and I started having people that are going through surrogacy come to the consulate to try to get a travel document to go back with their newborn babies, and I had to go over court orders and notarizations and try to help them go back without an American passport. And then I started hearing about all the challenges that they're facing and how this has been such a long journey for them and everything that happened that could have been done differently. And I started seeing so many of those families. And I think for me, it really hit home because I'm part of the LGBTQ family. I'm married to my spouse, Shira. She's Israeli too. And we have a beautiful 7.5-year-old that's here, Ella. You can raise your hand. Well, you cannot miss her with her pink dress. And I think as a same-sex couple, of course, we can't have it any other way besides doing fertility treatments. And the struggles, the amount of money that it costs people to do this, the disappointment, the long road. And when I started hearing more and more of it, I decided that this is what I want to do. I want to try to make this right and do surrogacy the right way, with the mindset of assisting separately, not being a surrogacy agency, but helping people when they're already pregnant to do all the things that regular surrogacy agencies do not do. So our company is the only one that does this nationwide in terms of assisting families deciding on their travel and how long they need to stay in the US and what do they need to do when they're here, and assisting them with healthcare, because a lot of them come here and they don't even realize that the woman carrying their baby is an American citizen, but when the baby is born, the baby is not covered under her health insurance. So they do not have health insurance for the newborn. And we started seeing people coming back with the NICU bills of $500,000, $1 million. And the worst we've seen was close to $3 million for a couple that we had in Idaho. So my goal is to find ways to save money for those families, so that all of you will probably not believe me, but this kind of journey costs about $200,000 for one baby for those families. So instead of them being able to buy a house or put a down payment, they either take all their savings towards this journey, or they take a lot of loans. And at the end of the road, when they're already pregnant, they're at the edge of their financial capacities and are already stretching. And then they are discovering all those, how do we pay for the hospital bills, or how long do we need to stay? And if there's difficulties, sometimes they can get stuck here. So I started a company in 2022, spent 8 months developing the concept of how I believe it should be. And then Allison joined me, and we started assisting those families as the company grew. We're now 4 people in the company, including a female mohelet, that's a certified nurse midwife that lives in Dallas, and I actually met her when she did circumcision, Brit Milah, for our clients. And what we do is, we have 2 routes right now. So we have the from pregnancy route, which is what we've been doing for the last 3 years, which is assisting clients once they're pregnant with navigating America, which is travel, like figuring out when do they need to come before the baby arrives, because usually they need to come about 2 weeks before, so they're not missing the delivery, how long they need to stay, and what's the route they should take. Okay, for example, if we have clients in Idaho, it's a bit more challenging because there's no passport agency there, and it's very difficult to do conversion there, for example. So we need to figure out all the details of how do we get everything that they need before they return, and we assist them with filling out paperwork at the hospital for birth certificates, applying for social security numbers, getting an American passport, and apostilling all their documents to get back home and be able to get parental rights for their babies in Israel, while assisting them with going back with a Jewish baby. So since I'm Israeli, and because of my background, I think 90% of our clients are Israeli. We do have some that are not, from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, etc., but most of them are. And because the egg donor and the gestational carrier, the surrogate, are not Jewish, the babies, even though they're born to 2 Jewish parents, are not considered Jewish. But I'll let Ali just say a little bit and explain about what we do in terms of conversion. I'll just say that Ali is the one assisting for the company with all the conversion processes. So just to have like an understanding of how big this got, we currently have 94 active families. Active meaning they're signed and they're pregnant in whatever, like either beginning of the pregnancy, maybe they're here. We have currently 2 families right in Chicago. And it's coordinating for all those families, how we get them converted all around the US. So there's places that is a bit easier, like Chicago, but it's places that are very difficult.
So just a bit about me. I started working in Jewish nonprofits, so I worked at Hillel, I worked at AJC, very familiar with that space for almost a decade, and also during COVID realized I'm really overdoing Zoom events in my living room, and was looking, even though it was great for the 5 years, it felt like, I was looking for a change, and I found a recruiter, and I think she had an interesting case on her hands, and she said, oh, you're Jewish, diplomatic, Israel. I know someone that's looking for someone who's also Israeli, who's a diplomat. I think it'd be a good match. And I said, sure, that sounds interesting. Didn't really have an understanding of what surrogacy really was. Learned really fast from Michal about everything that goes into surrogacy. And along with doing hospital billing and documentation, I get to do conversion with our Israeli clients. And it is such a fun part of the journey and such a puzzle to put together, whether it's finding a moil in Utah, which there is one, or flying people across the country, flying a moil to clients. We've done all of it. And after years of working on building a family, they get to end their journey with this really beautiful ritual, which a lot of them are very nervous about. The thought of dunking a baby in water is scary, as I have a baby myself. Yeah, that's scary. And the thought of going into a synagogue for a lot of our Israeli clients is also a little frightening. Most of them haven't really been a part of organized Jewish life in Israel. They just are Jewish, they live in Israel. They might fear that the community isn't going to be welcoming because of their background and the way they built a family. And I get to work with rabbis all over the country, including Rabbi Yumin Kamen, who open their arms and say, yes, it would be a mitzvah to help these families. And it's been such a beautiful journey, making connections all over the country with rabbis who say, yes, I will put together a Beit Din, put together a group of witnesses, coordinate with the mikveh, which it's all quite a bit of work, working on documentation that they'll bring back to Israel, to ensure that when they go home, the baby will be Jewish in the eyes of, some people. But on their identification will say Jewish, and I hear a lot of feedback from our clients that while they were so scared and nervous to go into the mikveh, they come out saying, wow, that was such a beautiful experience. What a great way to bookend this journey, to really take a moment after all the documentation and all the paperwork and logistics and flights and money to take a breath and say, wow, we welcomed a baby to our family. We welcomed another Jewish person to this community and to Israel. And it's been a really amazing and unique pleasure for me to be one of the people coordinating that. And I just so enjoyed working with all the rabbis and introducing them to this work and to these families. And it's been a real pleasure, and lots more babies to come.
Just to add to what Ali is saying, Israel still is very lacking in inclusiveness for the LGBTQ community. And as a person raised in Israel, the synagogues in Israel, because a lot of them are Orthodox, will not accept those families. So they come with being really scared going into a conversion process. So a lot of times, Ali will say, Michal, can you talk to them? Can you, let them know here's different. And I'm so proud that it is, because I really relate to the fear that we're two gay dads, and maybe people don't see us as a family. And we have families that have waited for those kids for 8 years, that tried and failed and had to go again. And for some reason, their surrogate was not cleared, or they lost the baby. And we recently had 2 dads that had twins in Milwaukee, and after 60 days, the boy died. And it's so emotional, and we're there for them at their most precious moments. Most of them really, really happy, but those families have been through a lot until they get to you. So just being so inclusive and being able to, bring them into the Jewish community culture and sending them back home with a Jewish baby is so big that for those families that I get the feedback after, besides them saying that Alison is wonderful, how meaningful that was for them, and how it's not at all what they imagined, I think is amazing. And interestingly enough, it is accepted by the country. So it is accepted by the Ministry of Interior. So there's a process in the paperwork, and I'm sorry, we don't take the paperwork. So they go back with certificates of conversion, and it just has to go through a specific, very particular process. But at the end of it, the baby is written down at the Ministry of Interior as Jewish, which is amazing for them. And as Ali said, putting the baby in the water is also very scary when you wait for that baby for 5 years. But really want to kind of open everything for if anybody has questions or want us to talk more about anything.
Thank you for your presentation, but I have a question. If a surrogate mother is Jewish, do you need a conversion or not? Still do?
Egg donors, no.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
yes, you do. Because only if you can prove that both the egg donor and the surrogate are Jewish.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I had a fundamental misunderstanding, but so how do they, first of all, I want to know, how do they find surrogate mother?
Okay, so we, for the first 2 years, did only the from pregnancy, and then we had a lot of returning clients that said, we want a sibling journey. Can you be our agency? And then we started, just like maybe 6 months ago, fully, to also serve surrogates and do the full journeys for surrogacy. We even have a Chicago-based couple that we're helping with, but what happens is usually it's marketed that, you know, we're looking for surrogates, so that other agencies market that, and I think now, if I'm understanding correctly, but I've not seen it, there's a whole YouTube, there's a surrogate mom that posts, and it apparently attracts.
TikTok.
It's what?
TikTok.
TikTok, sorry. I'm not social media person at all. I still like a Facebook person. Very old. So people reach out. So I think those that reach out usually are either had infertility in their life or the people close to them and feel a connection to that, or had friends that went through surrogacy and looking to do something meaningful, and of course, you know, the financial compensation assists as well for those people. But we hear from those surrogates, the reason being like they had very difficult, you know, family member that had infertility, and they thought to do that for them, but it didn't work out in the end. So I thought, why not doing it for somebody else? So we searched the surrogates, and then when clients signed with us, they fill out the questionnaire about their preferences for a surrogate, and they make like a profile. I always explain it like a weird Tinder thing. Like you, like dating, sorry, you see, I know the words, but no, you haven't used it. So it's like they fill out a profile, just like on a dating app, of like who we are, what do we do, who are we as a family, to kind of send, like, sometimes they write a letter for the surrogate, like why are they looking for a surrogate, why do they want to expand their family, with, you know, beautiful pictures of them. And then when we have a candidate, we show them her profile. So it's a bit like a dating app. And then if they want to meet her, we share with her their profile. If she wants to meet, we set up a Zoom call. It's called a match call. And they talk about the pregnancy, their preferences, their hobbies, everything. And then both sides need to decide if this is a match. So if it's a match, then we officially match them, and she's going to be their surrogate for their journey.
Testing 1, 2. Okay. Babies are born, and what's the typical age that they're in the U.S. Until when they go back to Israel?
So with us, we're able to get them ready to go back after 2 weeks post-birth, because they usually are already here for 2 weeks at least before. So as long as medically cleared to fly back, usually most of them will go back after 2 weeks.
Is there complications?
That's a good question. Because of the situation currently? I have not seen any difficulties recruiting. I did have 2 interesting match calls. One was yesterday. We had a match call scheduled for 2 p.m. Central Time, which was 10 p.m. at the midst of the rockets being shot from Iran. And we reached out to the couple and we're like, do you want to reschedule? And the so weird of a reality we live in was, oh, we set up the safe room in advance that we can do it from there, so we don't have to get up and move to a different room. So I was like, smart dudes, but They're like, even, and they told their potential surrogate, I'm pretty sure they're gonna match. They told her, like, they didn't discuss this, but after that, they said to us that even the fact that they were able, with everything going on, to have the hope that now they're talking to the woman that's gonna carry their baby is so amazing. So they did not wanna push that out. And it was not brought up on the call, but we did have one call where, surrogates asked, like, what happens if, I'm pregnant and baby comes early and I need you to come and the airport is closed, or like, are you safe there in Israel? So I think those families kind of know that those questions are coming, and they handle it pretty, like, professionals. But most times, no, we don't see any complications with, and the company itself is, owned by an Israeli, so that helps.
Hi. Thanks for coming. I have two questions. Do you only work with, the Israelis that you work with, must they go back to Israel?
If they must go back, that's the question?
Yeah.
Yes,
after
because they are here on a visa.
Okay. So if they have green cards, must they go back?
No, they don't have to go back.
Okay, but you would still work with them?
Yeah, of course, we work with everybody.
We have tenants, Nevo and Shaul.
They're already our clients, they're already signed,
And I'm
signed and matched.
I'm just hoping that they'll
Matched,
stay there. I love them so much. Huh?
When did you refer them? They're already, she said they're already matched. No, I know they're matched. I know they're matched, but
I think they
No,
plan
no.
on staying.
Because I told them I babysit and everything.
No, they're staying, they're staying.
Those are Chicago
I
plans.
love them.
We love them too,
Yeah.
They're great.
yeah.
So you would work with them and they could stay here?
Yes, of course. So only is, obviously internationals that don't have either a work visa or a green card, that are not legally allowed to immigrate, need to go back, yeah.
Hi.
Yes. If the baby is going to be a dual citizen. So interestingly enough, the baby goes back to Israel only as an American citizen and needs to get a tourist visa to enter Israel. And then there's about a 3-month parental process with courts in Israel. And the process, and I was used to be the one validating some of their documents to do this, is very old-fashioned. They have to go through DNA testing to prove that that's genetically their baby, and it's quite a long process. And usually about 3 months, once the court signs on their parental rights in Israel, then the baby is also an Israeli citizen. But they go back as American citizens to Israel.
Yeah, two questions.
For like Nevo and Shaul, like would their baby be an Israeli? If they're staying.
I couldn't hear the question.
Does the Ministry of the Interior set them as?
Yes. Well, Orthodox? Orthodox, 0. And Reform, Reform, and so, yeah, so it's like, the way it works is, it's interesting. So when they come here, as long as they cannot do Orthodox conversion. Not here and not in Israel. Because of them being a gay family. And because it's surrogacy. So if they complete the conversion in the US, they go back home, and once they get the okay from their Israeli attorney to go register the baby with the Ministry of Interior, what they do, so for example, when the rabbi writes all that beautiful paperwork, we send it, there's an attorney in Israel that needs to go over all the paperwork and say, that was a kosher conversion, and this is a congregation accepted by the Ministry of Interior, so she's validating your paperwork, and then they go with it to the Ministry of Interior when they registered the baby as an Israeli citizen, and then it's accepted. If they want to do it in Israel, I would say Masorti, then they cannot do it until the baby is an Israeli citizen. So when they go back, nobody would agree to do it until the baby is an actual Israeli citizen, and then at that point, if they want to do the conversion, a lot of them will do that, but they'll have to go back to court and ask to change the registration of the Ministry of Interior. So that makes that a lot more complicated for them. So many times, because they don't know how this works, we really need to explain to them why it's beneficial for them to do it here, because it simplifies bureaucracy later.
For the, oh,
Yeah, it works.
I guess it is. For the, if you have Israelis who come here and do the adoption here and then stay here, if they have to be back in Israel to get the baby Israeli citizenship, what would happen for that baby in terms of getting Israeli citizenship?
So something that's always like important for me to say, so surrogacy is an adoption. It's always going to be genetically connected and biological baby of one of the dads. Yeah, so the way it works is that they have court orders, usually it's called a pre-birth order, that says that from day one, like the minute the baby is born, the baby is theirs and they're the parents, and they go on the birth certificate, the surrogate mother never goes on the birth certificate, and then if you have Israeli citizens here, which is your question, and they have a baby, as long as they start the process with an Israeli attorney about like 20 weeks gestational age, and they just open a case in court in Israel, they can have the parental order, they can go here to the consulate, give DNA, their DNA, the baby's DNA, it is sent to Tel HaShomer, to the hospital, to compare the DNA of the baby with the genetic father. They just do the entire process from far away, yeah, from home.
How does this work financially? Are the surrogate, I mean, the parents paying for everything?
Yes.
So does the non-biological father need to adopt the child? U.S. first?
So what happened is when after they're matched and the surrogate goes through medical clearance with their fertility clinic and she's approved for the process, they both have legal counsel and they draft something called a gestational carrier agreement when it says that both of them are the fathers and she is just not genetically connected, it's not her baby, and just, it's about 50, 60 pages of a very long document.
Okay, because that's changed. That was because when my sister gave birth, her spouse, actually the spouse is the one who gave birth, and my sister had to legally adopt.
So it's interesting, your question is really important because it depends on the surrogacy laws of the state. Okay, for example, like in Iowa, that's how it goes. So in Iowa, only the genetic parent is right there, the father, and then the second parent need to do a second parent adoption process. In Illinois, people really love doing surrogacy here. There's not many surrogates in Illinois, but because of the surrogacy laws are very lenient. So it really depends. There's 48 states that allow surrogacy, but every state is so different. So as part of what we do is that we guide them as, when will you get the parental rights? How is it done? And also, if both of you are not on the birth certificate, how are we going to get you out of here? Because in Florida, that can take more than 2 months to get her, the gestational carrier, the surrogate, off the birth certificate. So We just find ways with to work with the government and getting them back home quicker. Of course.
Much. I knew people were going to be so interested. Thank you,
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
for
Of
joining
course,
us.
of
Thank you
course.
so
Thank
much.
you.
I want to say just a couple things, of course. The Frankels heard about you from me because I've been talking about this constantly from the Bima. Had friends. Couldn't have possibly been that long ago, and they're now clients and a match. So that's a pretty, I don't know if everybody heard that, but that's pretty incredible, and I think this is an amazing resource for people to know about. And I also just want to share briefly, because not all of you heard, my 2 experiences to date. Our first, I was worried when do I call you Allie? I was calling you Allison. All right. Called me that first day, and I said, how is it going to be for these Israelis to like deal with a female rabbi? So I went in with a little trepidation too, because I meet a lot of Israelis that say, oh, we don't have female rabbis in Israel, which is not true, of course. They don't know that much about it. So I was a little nervous, never thought like they might be nervous dealing with me. So it was really interesting. So the very first time, Cantor Rosenblatt was there as a witness, and Mr. Sherman was there as a witness, and it was right before Pesach, and I feel like emotionally attached, even though, I'll never see these people probably again in my life, but in the moment, it feels like this amazing, sort of bond, and asked them if there's anything that they need, because they were going to be here over Pesach, and they said, well, just tell us where we can get matzah. So we had just had a congregant donate a lot of boxes of shmura matzah, and Mr. Sherman happened to have them in his car. So he was like, hold up, I have matzah for you. And he ran out to the car and brought back matzah. So that was kind of an incredible moment. And then the second time that I participated, that I officiated, they were there with their surrogate. One set of grandparents had come from Israel, and the surrogate mom was there. And she had been on this journey. I think there had been several miscarriages to this point to get there.
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. 8 years she stuck with them, right?
No, she wasn't.
Or she wasn't the whole.
The embryos are in Canada,
Okay.
and the process there just did not.
Didn't work. Okay.
Didn't get
So
anywhere.
8 years, and to have her there, and to see her holding this baby that she was going to hand to them to take back to Israel. Like, there are angels that walk this earth. And she is one of them. And so I don't know I will ever have the opportunity to meet another surrogate mother again, but it has been this shining light. I feel like you guys have given me this gift of this shining light in these times of darkness. I'm going to talk about Israel a little bit later in the service. I know our prayers are with all of our brothers and sisters in Israel during yet another trying time, difficult time, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
And I said, we'll be there again next Thursday, and I got all the paperwork right, and
There's
everything
many more
right.
coming. So
Good. Keep them coming. Okay, where are we? Torah reading.
Torah reading begins on page 826, verse 35.
826, verse 35.